Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar about technology and sustainability in agriculture. This is offered by our postgraduate program at Zamorano. This webinar seminar belongs to one of our courses we're offering in our master's program on coffee and also on agribusiness environment. Today we have Jan Willem van Kasteren. He's from the Netherlands. He's working and based in Nairobi, Kenya. And he's working on the subject of market compliance for the UE. And today he's going to talk about 30 minutes about EU market compliance support for agriculture community traders and farm-based organizations. So Jan Willem, we're going to talk about 30 minutes, and after his talk we have about 5-10 minutes for questions. Please send the questions by on the chat, or you can also ask directly. Jan Willem also speaks Spanish, so if you want to have ask a question in Spanish, there's no problem at all. He can answer it also in Spanish. Okay, Jan Willem, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Sí hablo español, pero creo que mejor lo hago la presentación in English. I think you can see my presentation.
We do.
Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, it's a pleasure to give this presentation to your university and to your program of postgraduate students. So my name is Jan Willem. I'm from the Netherlands, but I've been in Kenya since 2004, and I've actually worked a few years in Bolivia from 2000 to 2003. So I do speak some Spanish. I am the director of an agricultural technology company, and we offer a supply chain management platform for the agricultural sector. So we have, I was in 2004, I started in Kenya an outgrower scheme. We were contracting farmers, about 8,000 families, to produce chili peppers, the small red chili peppers that you see in the baskets. So we were new in that area. So we needed to introduce contract farming, so the farmers would have confidence in us. We needed training programs, link farmers to financial institutions, and basically we needed an IT platform to manage this. So we saw that, sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. So we saw in, let's say 11 years later, that most cooperatives and traders, they were still using very simple IT systems or even paper-based systems in Kenya. So then we decided to test the software that we developed for ourselves and introduce it to farmer cooperatives and traders. So we then saw an opportunity. We registered a separate company called eProd Solutions, and we started selling the software to farmer cooperatives, traders, food processors, basically those that work with large numbers of farmers. Yeah? And the system is centered around the buyers. So those are the farmer, the buyers from the farmers. But in a way, it can also be configured as a multi-stakeholder platform, because all those companies, they also work with banks. They have to pay the farmers. They work with other services providers, etc. And in that sense, it is like a multi-stakeholder platform. So the system that we offer is affordable. We see that often the IT systems are introduced, but they are too expensive for the companies. So even if an NGO would introduce it, then often the second year they cannot even renew the licenses. So then of course the companies get stuck. So we focused on the, let's say, the lower end of the market, offer a very affordable system, but in a way it's a very comprehensive system. So the system is optimized for areas where there's no internet. It can work fully offline. It can also synchronize, for example, in a 2G network where the internet is very poor. So there's a lot of data in the system, which is becoming more and more important. So I'll tell you more about it. So our company is in a number of African countries, and we also in more than 30 different sectors. So we do a lot of work on the coffee sector, and I will focus a little bit on that in a few minutes. So just to give you an idea, we have a system that has a desktop application. The desktop application is like more like a sub-application. It is a very big system in a way. I think our strength is that we are able to introduce it step by step in a simple way. We are focused on developing methodologies where relatively complex systems like eProd can be introduced. It's an ERP. It touches many management aspects of a farmer cooperative, for example. Sorry. So that's why it becomes really complex. But there's a mobile application for the field staff, which is relatively simple to use. That one works fully offline, but for the desktop application, you need basically an internet connection. There's a little bit of background noise because I'm in Ethiopia, and that's the Ethiopian New Year. So I hope it doesn't bother you too much. So you can integrate all kinds of hardware like Bluetooth weighing scales, Bluetooth printers in case you want to print a receipt, sensors if you measure, for example, moist content. You want to pay the farmers and adjust the price because the moist content is too high, for example. You can integrate scanners, so that is important if you have complex systems for traceability, for example. You can also integrate other software, for example, accounting software, or you could have a complex factory ERP, for example, in a brewery that has its own systems. So then we can make the systems talk to each other. We can also integrate services, for example, weather forecast or agronomic advisory services. And we have done this with a couple of CG centers. So basically, we have a one-stop shop for those buyers from the farmers. But we can also work with, for example, NGOs or international buyers that work with many cooperatives. So in that case, we help our clients, which are, for example, farmer cooperatives, to partner with this commercial company, for example, or an NGO that needs the information from multiple companies. So they can, of course, they have to give permission to exchange the information. And then in that case, you can keep full traceability throughout the value chain. You can, for example, report on the environmental, social, or governance indicators that show the impact of your production with small farmers. For example, proof of living wages, proof of non-deforestation, things like that. So I'll give more practical examples there. So there's different functionalities in the system. One of the main functions is, of course, the quality assurance. So we have quality of the product starts with the planting material. For example, coffee seedlings. Those could come from a nursery. The nursery needs to produces batches. You can plant a field. You register the field. You can refer to the seedling batch. Then the polygon or GPS location can be taken for that field. When you do a collection, you can link that back, for example, to the farmer, but also to the field. You can do all kinds of cross checks for side selling, for example. And then even if you have a few value addition steps, you remain with a traceable product. I will also show you how that now is relevant for the EUDR. So there's a mobile app, for example, to do collections. Farmers need to be paid, of course. So when you pay farmers, you can choose to do cash payments. Not something we would encourage, but some companies, they prefer cash payment. So basically, you can create a wallet in the system. You assign the cash, and then that you can see how much of the cash has been spent. You can also then see how much product was bought. So you can link that actually to the stock levels, etc. So I'll show you also that. Then we have companies that, of course, want to pay the farmers through the bank or mobile payment. So in our system, you can do that if the bank has an API for the payment. And the advantage is that you can then see the balances in the bank account with or if the message, the transfer confirmations or error messages, etc. You can see that in the system. If the bank or the credit cooperative doesn't have an API, the system can also generate bulk transactions, basically bulk transaction instructions. Good. So there's a mobile app I mentioned. It's made very simple because it is really used by the field staff that often don't have a lot of technical knowledge. So all the configurations are basically done in the system at the office. But in the field, in the mobile app, you can, for example, do surveys. For example, in the coffee sector, you would have Rainforest Alliance that needs to collect data at farmer, field, and group level. Those surveys can be scheduled from the office. They can be done fully offline, and then the information can be collected and shared through the different certification bodies, for example, Rainforest Alliance. You can manage field registration, farmer registration, collections, training attendance, etc. There's many aspects that you can do on the mobile app. I'll show you some examples. You can actually send from the system also SMS messages. It could be one-way SMS, can be two-way SMS. You can also send localized weather information. You can send agronomic advice. So we work, for example, with CIAT, CATI in Spanish, or other CG centers that have models that, based on the location, soil type, etc., would give agronomic advice that can be captured through eProd and sent by SMS to farmers. An example is rice advice. It's an application developed by Africa Rice. It gives localized nutrient advice, fertilizer advice, but you need to register on their app, and then not all the farmers, especially in Africa, have smartphones. So what happens is that people are not using the app. So we did a full integration with eProd. Data is basically sent directly from eProd to the Rice Advice API. Then the message that comes back is sent to the farmers by SMS. So you don't need to have a separate application anymore. So if you record farmer training, imagine you have a few hundred groups of farmers. We have a few training topics. You can easily have thousands of group training sessions. So recording training attendance and then reporting by topic, by period, by gender, by age, etc. can be a real challenge. So in eProd, you can record all this on the mobile app or in the desktop. You can manage the stocks, the inventory management in eProd. So let's say you have a cooperative that is selling fertilizer to the farmers. They receive a truckload, it's distributed through the field supervisors, to the field staff, the extension officers, and then converted to farmers as a cash payment or against cash, or maybe as a loan or free of charge in case you want to do a demo. So you can see all the stock levels in the system. If you are buying from the farmers, let's say you're buying coffee, in eProd, you can now see exactly at which wet mill or at which warehouse is the coffee, and you have basically full traceability. So that improves, of course. Well, I'll come back to the traceability, but it's a critical aspect of the EUDR. In case the European company gets questions, they want to understand where the product came from, then the operator, the European company, has to be able to get this information. So I'm not sure if my internet is very good, but so in the system you can record, you can register farmers. You see here a screenshot of that. You see at the top a few tabs. You see loans, fields, payments, collections. So there's a lot of information that you can look up on the mobile app if you're an extension officer and farmers ask questions. This is all offline. Yeah? So you get basically a lot of information. That means that the extension officer can answer a lot of questions offline, and that of course builds trust with the farmers or with the members of the cooperative. You can also do surveys. I mentioned already, farmer, field, and group level. You can do surveys. You have all the type of survey questions that you can imagine. Open, multiple choice with multiple answers, skip options, etc. And especially, for example, for certification, this is very important. Sometimes, well, usually a cooperative that does one type of certification, for example, rainforest, does then also global gap and fair trade, etc. So there's a lot of overlap in those questions. And with eProt, we can help streamline those questions. So a lot of information is already in the system. A lot of questions are overlapping. So we take that all out. So basically you have one questionnaire, but you can have multiple reports. Rainforest Alliance can have its own report, EcoCert, etc. They can all have their own reports according to the certification that they need. So when you register field, you can see you can actually record also the polygon. So you basically just walk around the field. It works also offline. It also works where the GSM is coming and going, which is a bit of a technical challenge for this kind of application. So it's all optimized. Again, at field level, you can also do surveys, for example, for scouting pests and diseases, or baseline survey, etc. Okay, good. Now, consent sharing is becoming more and more important. We see this, for example, with those companies that either work with international NGOs or companies that work with international buyers. In many countries, it's not so strict, especially in Africa. But for some markets, it's really important that you can prove that the farmer understood to what they have given consent. For example, that you are sharing polygon information with your European buyer. And you need to make it plausible that the farmer understood it and that the farmer has agreed, and also that the farmer has a chance to opt out, which basically means that they can discontinue. They can say from now on, the cooperative cannot share this information anymore. And so that is also a module in, a feature in the system. I want to give you an example of integration with soil analysis device. This company called AgroCares, I know they're very active in Latin America, especially Central America. So basically they have a small device, the size of a coffee pot, that takes a picture with a near-infrared camera. That picture measures basically indirectly the nutrient levels, and it gives on their app. So you basically have a separate database for the farmers in the fields. Because of the integration with eProt, you can find the eProt farmers basically in their fields directly on the app, and you can now basically do the soil analysis for those farmers. Maybe also against credit, for example, you give them a loan, you then deduct it from the delivery, for example. And then the results can be shared directly on the app of the extension officer or by SMS to the farmer. So you don't need a smartphone, you can receive an SMS. In case the farmer has a smartphone, you can actually, the message will have a short URL, short website address. If you click on that, you get the full PDF, so you can see all the details of the report. Great. So let's go closer to the topic of the EUDR. We have, so we had a very brief discussion before we started the webinar about recording polygons. So the polygons, of course, is a very important step in the EUDR process. but it's basically one of the many steps. But I'll show you in eProd what you can do. So of course you can take GPS locations for small fields. For the EODR, that is fine. Under 10 hectares, you can take GPS location. Now we have, even if you have the GPS location, you have the polygon, you now need to prove that there was no deforestation. So of data. So in 2020, was there a forest on the plot where you are, where you're producing coffee, where the coffee came from? And if there was if there was a forest, then likely the forest was cut so you could plant coffee there. So this is exactly what EUDR wants to understand. So when you take the polygons, you should be able to see against those maps. So this is an example of a map. It's called Earth Engine. There's another one, Forest Observatory from the European Union. So basically, you can see whether your field was in the forest or close to a forest in 2020. And there are all kinds of tools that we have integrated so you can actually flag all those fields. So you don't send that product to the European companies because they will get into trouble and you will lose your market. So this is an example where a field is flagged because according to those maps, it was in a forest in 2020. So let me show you a little bit more about the EUDR. So when you produce coffee from a certain field, it needs to meet certain requirements. So requirement, for example, is that you have a polygon, that there was legal production, etc. So we have a list of requirements. We can remember in the system you have stock accounts, so we can link product to a stock account. So to the inventory. So let's say I have a bag for a farmer, 100 kilos from field A. This product meets all those requirements. It has a polygon, it has the legality check, etc. Then that product, I can link it to the stock account, EUDR compliant. I've got two other bags and they don't comply. So I cannot, in the system, I can configure it that I cannot link those two bags to basically the product that I can export to the EU. Then you create a batch. So this batch is probably after the collection, it's processed centrally. So you have, for example, a wet mill, you have a couple of value addition steps. And then I can link all the product that complies. In this case, you see batch A, B, and C. So you have, after the wet mill, you have, for example, drying, grading, etc. So you have all the product that complies. You link that now to an order, let's say from your client in Europe. In the system, you can upload your export documentation, for example, certificate of origin, phytosanitary certificate, but also other documents like your legality checks, risk assessments, risk mitigation strategies, all the documents that your buyer wants, including the polygons. And the system basically exports this now. The system can export this as the information in a file, in a format which is called GeoJSON. And the GeoJSON is basically what your client in Europe needs. And the GeoJSON file contains what they call the due diligence information. And that due diligence information can be used by the European company when they upload the due diligence statement in Traces. So they will not directly upload this, but they can do additional checks. So basically the same checks that they are doing, you can already do it yourself. You can now see in the system how the European company is going to view it. If the system for you flags risks of deforestation, for example, the same risks will be flagged for the European company. And then, of course, they will come back to you and say you put some bags in the container that cannot be verified, or likely there was deforestation. And so you can basically be a few steps ahead and avoid that there's any product that doesn't comply and that you put it in the container. And so that is absolutely critical, because you will lose your clients. They have enormous penalties in case they don't comply. Good. So let's maybe input or training of soil analysis, or they advance cash to farmers. So this could be against a loan. So in ePlot, you have a lot of information that you can use to do a risk analysis, and to us basically do a credit scoring, who should receive a loan and what size of loan, etc. So this is can be done with what we call loans on the balance sheet of the cooperative, basically loans paid for by the cooperative. It can also be done by loans that are financed by banks or other financial institutions. So we have examples there. We have a project with a bank in East Africa where farmers get a credit line. They can now check available balances through USSD. And then through the extension officers or of the company or the coffee cooperative, or through shopkeepers, they can apply for loans. And then basically they can select a product, like fill in the details, confirm the transaction, either with biometrics or with scanning the ID card. If you have an ID card printer, you can directly from the system print your own ID cards. It's very affordable. A blank ID card is maybe $5 or $10. You can actually then also use NFC, etc. So it's very, very affordable. You can print it directly, or you use OTP, one-time PIN, to confirm a transaction. Yeah, because you're dealing with money. Once you start deducting those amounts, you could, of course, get a huge dispute, a huge problem with farmers that claim that they didn't receive the loan, for example. Good, I've come almost at the end. I would like to bring to your attention a training course that we do with together with sorry, our partner Bühler. It's a Swiss company. They make machines for the coffee sector, for example, but also for many different sectors. They do milling equipment. So we do together a big course about contract farming and grain processing. So this course we had about 700 graduates in the last 2 years. We actually also offered it in French, and would be quite interesting to even offer it in Spanish. And then there's another course which is specifically about EUDR compliance. Well, it's a bit broader, so it includes CSRD, CSDDD, Lieferkettengesetz, and many different topics. It is for free. It's a free course. It starts 6th of October, and it is 3 weeks or 15 days in a row, Monday to Friday for 3 weeks, and every day is a live webinar. If you're interested, you can register through your professors. We will also share the link. At the moment it is in English, but maybe in the future we do it in Spanish. Of course, it is in Teams. You can actually put translation functions, and you can basically read it more or less in Spanish. And happy to share with you afterwards the slides in Spanish, for example. And we can translate. We have actually 14 languages in the system, including Spanish and Portuguese for those. We have actually Portuguese for Brazil and Portuguese for Portugal. So that's just for your information. If you're interested, it's for free. You can pre-register already starting on the 6th of October. Great. So that was the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions in case you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Abelo. I'm going to Spanish now. Ok, en el caso si hay preguntas, dudas sobre la presentación, tal vez arranco yo primero con una pregunta, después ojalá algunos estudiantes. In la discussion sobre introducción, in the case of an introduction of technology, with farmers, there's always a low adoption rate by using this kind of advanced technologies. What about your experience? How easy is it to introduce those kind of technologies with farmers associations or farmers organizations?
Yeah.
And how much money you need of subsidies you need to introduce those kind of technologies with those cooperatives? How much technology assistance you have to offer to them?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, our clients are not directly farmers, but they are the farmer cooperatives and the traders. So by the time they come to us, they see the need. They have a need, they have a problem that they need to solve, and we have a solution. So that makes it easier. That makes it easier. Of course, they have to pay for the service, which means that they have to think twice before they put their money into the software. So we don't have a lot of problems there, but what we still see often is that there is a lot of resistance. So the people in the field, for example, extension officers, they're very comfortable to work on paper or the way they have always worked. So there you see a resistance. What we do a lot of feedback reports. We have automated a lot of feedback reports to the field staff, to the senior management, so they can see in time whether there's a good progress or not. We do usually on-site training, which helps a lot. So our team develops really. They spend a week together, so they develop a bond. Then we have per company a WhatsApp group. We have back office support, which is included in the price. So yeah, we make the companies really see the value of the system. We have actually every 3 months we have what we call data health check. So we have a 1-hour call with the client to go through any new system requirements they might have. If our clients do well, or even if they don't do well, their needs, they will always change. So it's very important for us to know what the challenges are, and then we help them find solutions. So we have actually quite a good retention rate. It's of course not 100% because companies also go bankrupt, etc. But yeah, we have found a way to closely work with the company to have a good, successful implementation. Oh, and sorry, the second question was about the cost. So we have, I can actually quickly put up a slide. I did I did hide it for this presentation. So because I thought it was probably not so relevant. But so basically we have an annual license fee. We don't apply a SaaS model. And let me just.
It's more about the cost of technical assistance. How much do you need, or how many hours you spend? You already answered the question more or less.
Okay, good. Yeah, so okay, we when we go on site, we charge, let's say, $250 a day. And if it's remote, it's just in proportion.
Yeah.
And we know only need, let's say, 20 days or so for a full implementation.
Okay, that's not that much. Okay, other questions from students or from participants about the system? You can make, usted puede hacer la pregunta en español y contestamos en español. Ahora recibo, aquí tengo una pregunta. What's the impact in the production? There's also kind of impact in the production by using this kind of technology, or that will be remain the same? And maybe also additionally, do you see some impact on the income of those farmers by using this kind of complex technology?
Yeah. Okay, because this is a question which is often asked. It's very difficult for us to measure that because we didn't really know how the company was producing before they started using eProd. We do import some past records, but usually not really production records, because most of our clients, they really go from paper-based systems to eProd. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine there is a positive impact, but it's really difficult to measure. Same on the income of farmers. The problem is that, well, I think the biggest impact on income is that if you don't comply with the market requirements, of course, then you lose your market. So we help our clients to be EUDR compliant. Without that, they could, of course, still export outside Europe, China, India, but those are really the low-end markets with not really the best prices. So it's difficult to measure. From an academic point of view, this is, of course, a very interesting question. Yeah, we have never been able to do this kind of studies, really. It's also difficult because we don't have a comparison group.
Another question, Ramiro?
Yes, I'm very concerned on what's behind the UDR. Last year, I was in Basel, and they were talking about the R just before it got extended a year. And my concern was that I was at an event where it's all traders, and there were two exporters, producers, and they think it's all it's easy, and it doesn't affect the producers. And they talk about tools and helping them. And I asked them a simple question: do you guys think this is fair for people who barely, who live off of this? We're putting up the hurdle, and a tool that a law that's being created to supposedly be good for sustainability is actually it's hurting those who are, it's being an exclusive.
Yeah.
We're taking away the opportunity for others for something that Europe is responsible in their area for the carbon production they have in their area, but not in our area. Do you think this, at the end of the game, it's all supply and demand? And as a farmer, we're not getting rewarded 1 cent, and we're absorbing all the cost for EUDR. So do you see this going forward? Because I actually see that if there's a rebellion that takes place, Europe's going to have a choice but to do something to say, hey, we're creating more damage. They just went back. I think they're going back right now. Oh, that's another topic, and I'm not going to get into it. But do you see UDR continuing, or is it going to lose traction because it's actually being something that's going against the inclusive growth of those less developed countries?
Okay, we work closely with ITC, the UN organization, the International Trade Center, ITC, and for this training program. So there was, yes, the EU was postponed once. It will not be postponed again. And there's no indication that it will be postponed. The coffee traders, and we work closely with the big coffee traders, Neumann Coffee Group. Well, we know Sucafina very well, Ecom, Louis Dreyfus, Touton. They are, well, I have to be careful what I say, but basically they think that they will get away with it, and that it's enough to have a couple of polygons that you then tell your European company, this is from those fields the coffee came from. Now, if you go through the EUDR, and there was recently, they have this what they call frequently asked questions, FAQ. There was a few weeks ago there was a new version of that, and they emphasize extra the need for the traceability, because you need to make it plausible, realistic, that coffee actually came from those fields. And to do that, you need traceability. And then, if depending on the risk level, if you have a standard risk, like most countries, they are at standard risk for deforestation, you have to do a risk assessment in addition. If from the risk assessment there is a risk that cannot be neglected, you need to have a risk mitigation strategy. Then you have the legality check, the legal documentation. There's a lot of information that the traders don't talk about, and they just focus on those polygons, which is the smallest step. We have actually built with ITC an integration. ITC, they have the deforestation free trade gateway, and it's basically for smaller cooperatives that kind of struggle, and they basically can then upload the polygons, and then European buyers can do their checks for deforestation based on those polygons. So you don't need all the tools that eProd offers, but still we made this integration with DFDG. I'll put it in the chat, or maybe if I don't find it, you can share it later. But basically, there are so many steps that have to take place. If you have a standard risk in your country, which I think most countries in Central America will have a standard risk, that means that 3 out of 100 containers are being checked by the EU, and the operator needs to show proof of non-deforestation and legal production. To do that, the cooperatives need to have the traceability in place. Plus all the capacity to manage all this information of risk assessment, risk mitigation, legal production, etc. So there's really, really much more to it than just basically sharing a set of polygons. Maybe to your first question, is this fair? Is it fair? Is justo? I think it's not fair to the farmers. First of all, of course, the EU the first time they didn't take enough time to prepare the producers. Now they have had a year extra, which of course now it's more difficult to say that cooperatives are not ready. The thing is that the coffee traders are not willing to co-invest, and they are not. And I can give you examples. They are not willing to co-invest because they don't. At the end, it's not in their interest to have very strong farmer cooperatives. I think that is simply the reality. So they don't really want to empower the farmer cooperatives. They don't co-invest. To be honest, the real cost to record the polygons is basically close to zero. On YouTube or on Play Store, Google Play Store, there are probably 50 applications that you can download for free to just map a polygon in a format, a KML format, that you can then share with your buyers. You can do that, for example, through the DFTG, the Deforestation Free Trade Gateway from ITC, what they set up. So there's not really a cost. It's really about capacity building. Of course, many cooperatives wouldn't have the capacity, at least in Africa. Cooperatives really struggle to understand what is required. So I think it's going to be a struggle. One thing I don't agree with you, Ramiro, there are, at the moment at least, there are premium prices. The coffee prices are very high, probably mainly because of the drought in Brazil. But still, the coffee prices are very high. And this, for companies that do comply with EUDR, they will benefit from that. Eventually, in 1 or 2 years, this is now mainstream, and those premium prices will not be there anymore, I think. But short term, there are serious premium prices. And I think this is the opportunity now for the cooperatives to strengthen that relationship. I must say, before we started the meeting, we talked about Rainforest Alliance. Rainforest Alliance, they kind of pretend they have a solution that is EUDR compliant, but it's not accepted by the EU. Yes, it is a partial solution that helps sharing polygons, for example, but it does not the additional steps, the risk assessment, proof of legal production, proof of deforestation, etc. So we have to be very careful. The big traders, but also certification bodies, they all have their own interest, and sometimes they contribute to a lot of confusion.
I'm sorry. Can I do a follow-up? Yeah. I don't think prices have anything to do with EUDR. That just happens to be market conditions. And as for cost, I have a different function, okay? And I do see the market in Central America. And I think, to be honest with you, if I would be in my power, I would consolidate all the producers and tell them do not sell to Europe, because it's not fair that we're trying to. They're blaming us for carbon neutral, and they're exporting their water from Europe to our market. How can you ship water from Europe? And they do force. I know for a fact they do force us to put our information on a platform for us to sell to them, in which is the cost to us per pound. And it makes so we're getting additional cost, and the markets in different countries. And I'm going to go to Honduras because I do have a lot of Zamoranos here. Honduras for me is a country where the perfect democracy is the coffee, because there's so many small coffee holders, and I question myself: is it fair to put more stuff on their plate when it's hard today to even get labor to pick your coffee? Is Europe thinking of themselves to make them feel good, or they're actually thinking about a real problem, and I think is the first one. They're trying to feel good and not actually solve a problem. I'm sorry to be outspoken, but that's why they didn't like me when I was over there, because RFA launched a program with Rabobank in which they were giving a carbon credit to producers for the additional shade they would be putting when they drew a polygon, but they would not give the carbon credit if they had shade already installed. And that again it goes against the farmer. So I think that unfortunately the producers are always paying the price, and I think we're slave. We're paying the price on all this sophisticated stuff when we got to keep it simple and actually have the producer be able to make money. Sorry, but I got carried away. But I take sustainability very seriously, and I like to speak how it is.
Well, I thank you, Ramiro. I think this is the position of producers countries. There's a big difference, consumers and producers. I guess that's the whole discussion about it. But José Roberto Díaz, you had a question. ¿Usted tiene una pregunta, José Roberto? Está en mute. Tiene que...
A mí se me estaba pensando, escuchando hablar a mi compañero por aquí, y yo pensaba cómo esta herramienta le ayuda al pequeño. Estoy de acuerdo que le pone más carga administrativa, pero ¿cómo asegura el productor la venta de su cosecha a través de esta herramienta? Eso no me queda claro.
You got it?
Yeah, I think I got it. So it's basically it's like a precondition. So it's not that if you it's basically an additional requirement, and it's no guarantee that you have a market or that you get good prices. They just basically make it more difficult to meet the requirements for the European Union. There's no certainty created by having EUDR in place. You can improve, of course, your hopefully your prices, because not all the companies will be able to comply. But at the moment, it basically is just additional compliance costs.
Yes, because excuse me, I'm going to say in English because our coffee, it's very good quality, and we really think we deserve a little bit more money for our coffee. And besides that, I agree that you are putting with this tool, you are putting more administrative weight to the producer. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so first of all, we offer a management tool that is not specifically for EUDR. It's just to help you manage collections, payment, traceability.
I understand.
Input, many aspects. I think if you are a bigger cooperative, you reach a skill that you cannot do your processes on paper anymore. So then a system like eProd will help. Yes, there's a cost to it, but the cost saving is very big. And you have less paper, less staff, less mistakes. You can recover your loans better advisory services. So the system should pay for itself. So if you would only buy it for EUDR, then it's a different story. If that helps you to have access to the market, then of course it's probably still a good investment. Because I think the highest prices are still in Europe. But yeah, so if it is basically just an additional functionality that we offer for free, the deforestation check or non-deforestation check, uploading documents of legal production, sharing due diligence information with your operator. That's just functionality that is available for free. It comes for free if you buy the package.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Willem. Muchas gracias, José Roberto. I think that was the last question because it's almost time. I want to thank all the participants today for being with us today. And of course, Jan Willem explaining the system. I think there's a big difference between the system and the EU compliance. I think the system is very interesting, including for Zamorano. The administration of our production, I think it's very interesting. And this is all for today. So I want to thank you, Jan Willem, for your participation, and hopefully it was for interest for all the participants. And we're going to send the information about the course, about the EU course, and also about the use of prod solution. Have a nice day, everyone. Gracias.
Thank you very much.
Okay.